thank you for listening and supporting the Daily Memphian. Sign up for one of our many free newsletters and breaking news alerts at dailymemphian.com/email to receive the latest local news stories impacting our community. Our weekly newsletters cover everything from sports to arts and culture, business, food, and more, along with daily updates of all the news we publish each day. Sign up or manage your email preferences at dailymemphian.com/email.
This is the Daily Memphian Politics Podcast. I'm Bill Dries. The main event is Fuerza, a new state political action committee with local ties. Top of the podcast, a review of some of the action in this year's just completed session of the Tennessee Legislature, with another year to go in the two-year assembly. At the end of the session, a super chancery court appointed by the governor at first to hear cases that challenge the constitutionality of state laws and take any case that the Tennessee Attorney General, state government's attorney, might send its way instead of going to regular chancery court. This would be a three-judge panel, some of the details of the compromise emerging because legislators caucused in closed meetings at the end of the session in Nashville to work out the details. This comes in the same session where some legislators unsuccessfully sought to oust Davidson County Chancellor Ellen Hobbs Lyle after her rulings last year to open absentee balloting during the pandemic. This bill is on the governor's desk as we record. So is a bill passed near the end that bars teachers from teaching about concepts of racism, sexism, and bias as part of the country's history. Details added at the end that specifically target the teaching of what is known as critical race theory, and specifically themes in the New York Times 1619 project on slavery's role in the founding of the nation, also banned the concepts of white privilege and systemic racism. The state's education commissioner can withhold funds from specific schools and districts that teach about the forbidden topics and themes under terms of the bill. Approved earlier in the term in Nashville, the bill by Shelby County Republicans Brian Kelsey and Kevin Vaughn to allow student athletes to be paid for the use of their names, images, and likenesses, approved by the legislature. Signed and on the books is the state law eliminating the need to have any kind of permit to carry a gun openly in the state. The Shelby delegation crossing party lines on this one, with a majority of the 19 House and Senate members from Big Shelby voting against this. A party line vote within the delegation on a right-to-work constitutional amendment that goes to voters statewide on the November 2022 ballot. Under state provisions, it must pass with a majority of the votes cast in the general election for governor on the same ballot in order to become part of the Tennessee Constitution. Approved with some yes votes from Shelby County Democrats and several present but not voting designations from the Democrats, the state law that effectively bans transgender athletes from playing sports in middle and high school. The law says the sex of those athletes is to be determined by their sex at birth. Pending for the second year of the two-year session, no textbooks or instructional materials that, quote, promote, normalize, support, or address lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender issues or lifestyles. Third graders not reading at grade level based on state test scores must be retained, the state says, starting in 2023. An appeal mechanism for parents of this is pending, and the appeal mechanism is only a House bill. There is not a Senate version to date. On the books, the legislature has extended the deadline for local legislative bodies like a city council or a county commission to complete their redistricting or redrawing of district lines by the most recent U.S. Census. The deadline now goes past New Year's Day 2022 because of delays in the national census results. The extension means district lines for the Shelby County Commission will not be set until just months before the May County primaries that will include races for all 13 commission seats. Yes, the commission, like the city council, draws its own district boundaries. We've seen this happen before with city council races in 2011, where some candidates who had filed to run for the council suddenly found themselves drawn out of the district they were going to run in. Dead for the year, but hanging on, a bill making it a felony to protest in the streets and give immunity from prosecution to drivers of cars who hit protesters in some instances. Same song, second verse for the bill on the 3 Gs, Germantown Elementary, Middle, and High Schools, setting up a mechanism for talks between Shelby County Schools, which currently includes the 3 Gs, and the Germantown Municipal School District. This would also apply to Lucy Elementary in Millington, which is also part of SCS. The bill would have set a time limit for the school systems to work out a return of schools within the suburban city limits to the suburban school systems, or see the legislature get involved. Budget season underway in county government and city government, and there are members on the council and on the commission who might propose property tax hikes once the current tax rates are lowered as part of the recertification to account for 2021 reappraisal values. The city property tax rate going below $3, as you heard Council Budget Committee Chairman Worth Morgan say on this podcast last time, is prompting the look by some council members. On the county side, it is the $4.05 property tax rate there, going down probably 55 cents in order to generate the same amount of revenue with the increase in values. Commission Budget Committee Chairman Edmund Ford Sr. got some different scenarios for keeping the $4.05 tax rate, as well as a drop to $3.75 and $3.44 from County Property Assessor Melvin Burgess Jr. this past week. Ford says if this goes from a $3.50 property tax rate recertified and begins to go up and gets too close to keeping $4.05, he becomes less likely to vote for a move to an every other year reappraisal cycle that Burgess wants to replace the current every 4-year cycle. A few other observations on the data from Burgess that breaks down the reappraisal by the 7 cities in the county. The gross property value increase from 2020 real estate assessments to the 2021 reappraisal shows the biggest percentage increase in Arlington, 29%, Bartlett second at 25.4%, and Collierville and Memphis tied for third at 17%. The highest projected property tax payments for an average homeowner under the 3 rates that are part of the figures here was in Germantown. The range is $4,125 to $4,856. Collierville was second with a range of payments from $3,845 to $4,527. Joining us now on the podcast is Gabby Salinas, the Democratic nominee in the close race for State House District 97 last year, and 2 years before that, the Democratic nominee in another close race for State Senate District 31. She is here today as a board member of a new statewide political action committee, Fuerza, with a goal of electing Latino Democrats across the state. Gabby, let's talk about our part of the state, because the board of this organization includes Nashville's first Latina Metro Council member and others. Numbers about Latino voting strength here are hard to come by because until just recently, voter rolls reflected Black and white and other in terms of demographic categories, and those are voluntary when you register to vote in Tennessee. Are the numbers and is the appeal right in Shelby County for a Latina candidate?
Yes, I think so. We have about 60,000 Latinos living in Shelby County. And, a lot of the political action that happens in Shelby County, it's with existing voters, right? There hasn't been a coordinated effort to reach out to Latino voters, especially, and engaging them in the voting process and, registering to vote, making sure that they understand the process. A lot of the people that are eligible to vote, they're first-time voters, and maybe their parents aren't aren't eligible to vote, or so there's a lot of barriers to understanding the process. And there hasn't been an organization that uniquely understands the challenges, but also the opportunity that's there. And in races like mine that were so close, if you turnout is the name of the game. If you can get even, 500, 600 more people to turn out and vote, it can make a huge difference in who is elected and who's represented and who people see in leadership and in diversifying who are in these positions.
Mm-hmm. So how many Latino and Latina voters do you think there are out there who are not on the rolls yet, who are not registered to vote?
Yeah, it's like you pointed out, it's hard to tell. However, having run, twice in areas where there was a lot of potential in canvassing, obviously in 2020 canvassing, I didn't canvass, but there is a lot of voters out there that we're not reaching. In terms of a number, it's hard to predict, but we need people that are doing the work and getting more representation and more voters educated about the process.
Mm-hmm. And does Fuerza have financial goals for how much money you want to raise to make this possible to get these kind of efforts underway?
Yeah, so we're just getting started. For 2021, we want to have $100,000 operating budget. And then we will work from there. I think what is unique about us is that we have the experience, right? That hasn't been the case before. When I was running for the first time, Fabian Bende, who was on the Nashville City Council at the time, I reached out to him for guidance. I call him my padrino, which is the Spanish word for godfather, because it is different, right? When you're running as a first generation American, as an immigrant, as a Latino, how do you fundraise? How do you mobilize voters that haven't been previously engaged? And we have that experience. So we want to use the experience that we have gathered from running for office and pass it to the next generation, into upcoming generations that are coming into the political process. So, yes, that's.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this is a PAC that is about Latino Democrats, electing Latino Democrats. Is there competition from Republicans for the Latino vote here, as there is elsewhere in the country?
I haven't seen that. Not one that is led by Latinos. And I think that makes a difference. Mm-hmm. Because we are unique. We uniquely understand the issues that face our community. Right. I think that everybody, wants to talk to voters. However, it does make a difference if you are from that community and how you can relate and address the issues that they're facing. So here in Shelby County, I'm not aware of any organization on the Republican side that recruits candidates and is willing to raise money to support them through the process, as well as engaging voters that haven't been previously engaged.
Mm-hmm. All right. Our Memphis politics, as you know from doing this twice, has been defined for so long by black and white. What does more Latino political participation mean for that definition of Memphis politics?
Yeah, I don't think that's unique to Shelby County. However, the last election cycle, we saw just how these minority communities have deeply impacted and had a lot of political power, not only, the Latino community, obviously, but also within the Asian community, where these small number of voters are making a deep impact, right? So I think that's something very important to keep in mind and consider here in Shelby County. Right.
And could Fuerza get involved in nonpartisan races like those for the Memphis City Council and or Memphis Mayor that's coming up in 2023?
Yes, we are open. We know that all politics is local, and we have been very intentional about making sure we have representation from the entire state. We have the grand divisions, the 3 grand divisions represented on our board, and we are looking to get involved in local politics because that's kind of where we are going to be able to make a bigger impact for our local communities. I think looking at statewide or other races, it's, sometimes the impact is not felt. It takes a long time, right? Politics is a slow moving thing when legislation is in place. But when you look at our city councils, our county commissions, a small number of votes can make a huge difference in changing those legislative bodies and what gets implemented when it comes to policing, when it comes to the district attorney race, and how our communities are doing here locally. So we don't plan to only be engaged in partisan races.
Mm-hmm. And we should also point out that while 2022 is a big year for partisan elections, there are also school board races on the ballot next year as well, which are, as we said, nonpartisan races too, and also very important races.
Yes, absolutely, and especially when you consider how many parents have kids in Shelby County schools that are Latino, right? And we currently don't have a Latino serving on the school board. It would be great for our community to be represented in that governing body.
You've talked to, and I've mentioned it too, your 2 races over the last 2 cycles for the Tennessee Legislature Shelby County delegation. And as we said, those were close general election races in both cases. What do you think those 2 races say specifically about the possibilities for this PAC in Shelby County, as well as the challenges?
Right. I think one thing that, I set out to make my community better. I didn't really set out to be like the Latina candidate, right? However, when being on the campaign trail and seeing how much that resonated with the community, I realized that it's a very it's a place of privilege because we haven't been represented in the past. And I think that's a great opportunity for our community. I think obviously there have been challenges on, whether electability or whatever, but I think we definitely proved that Latino candidates can win in primaries for sure, right? I came out of both of my primaries and they weren't easy, but we got the majority of the vote and we were able to channel that support into a very competitive race when we weren't the strong financially backed candidate, right? But we resonated with our community, and that's why we were able to mobilize voters, and turnout is the name of the game. And the candidates that can resonate with the community, I think we have definitely shown can put up a competitive fight, even if they aren't backed by big dollars. And I think that speaks to our democracy here in the United States and in our state. And
you make a great point here about running as a candidate to go for issues that matter to everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what your identity is. Is this though a balance between hitting those goals and those issues, and about how many Latino voters are within the boundaries? I mean, politics is really good sometimes at stripping away some of the subtlety and being really, really basic. but the truth seems to be that there's a mix of both of those things that make for a successful campaign.
Yeah, and good policy is good policy, right? And I think we have seen that, for example, immigration is not only an immigrant community issue. A lot of us Americans think that it's a strength of our country. And I think we've seen that nationally and locally, that candidates that have been not as strong on immigration issues haven't done as well, because it's such in the fabric of who we are as Americans. So I think that good policy resonates across the board. And what we bring to the table is a different perspective of how we can address those problems in our community.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that having a candidate who ran for president and won the presidential election in part on just a broad-based slogan of build the wall, do you think that has helped to make immigration something that is not just an issue for immigrants?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I would say yes. It's hard to, these things are really hard to look across the entire country, obviously, because we're a very big country. But we definitely did see that in areas where you wouldn't expect immigration to be a bigger issue, right? So non-border states. Right. Immigration was still up there. It was still a big issue that people cared about. What has happened at our southern border in terms of kids being in cages, that was important to everybody, regardless of whether you lived in those border towns or not. So I think that speaks to exactly who we are as Americans, and it definitely mobilized people and provided a strong contrast between two candidates that were on opposite sides of the issue.
Mm-hmm. This last time around the 2020 campaign, the state Republican Party and the House Republican leadership put a lot of effort behind John Gillespie, the Republican who won that race. Do you feel like the state Democratic Party did enough to counter that or to level the playing field in that regard for you?
Well, I think we're not, as a party, up to par with the financial side of things, right? And that's something that we have to be able to overcome. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party isn't as financially, we don't have the abundance in finances like the Republican Party does. However, we're right on the issues. The majority of people agree with our issues, so it is important that we mobilize people and that they know where we stand on the issues and how those issues relate to them and how us being in positions of leadership will improve their lives. So it's difficult when the disparities in finances are so big. And, that's why I'm a big supporter of campaign finance reform, because I think it can sway democracy.
Mm-hmm. And there were also some leaflets that looked to be financed by what is called dark money, third party groups that came in and distributed a lot of paper in that particular district with attack ads against you. I mean, as a candidate, as a person, how do you cope with that? Do you think, well, I've got to hit back against the other guy doing something similar to this, or do you think, well, maybe this won't have any impact?
Oh, no. I never think that. Martin Luther King said, darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can. I don't believe in taking that same approach. So we have always maintained a positive campaign that speaks to what we can do and what we bring to the table. However, I don't think that those campaigns were as successful as they wanted them to be, but the way we combated it was by talking to voters and making sure that we were giving them the opportunity to answer questions, for me to answer their questions, and for them to know that where we stand on the issues. I think the big success of my campaign was that we put in 105,000 calls into the district, and every time that issues or negative stuff was coming out, we made sure that we were talking to the voters and that they knew where I stood on the issues and what was important for me and for our community. And I think that was our way of combating that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And I think you can confirm this. Most candidates that I've talked to talk about this, that when you're campaigning, when you're canvassing, when you're going door to door, the most basic style of hand-to-hand politics, you're constantly introducing yourself over and over to people. You may have very strong views on issues that they're interested in hearing, but most people, when they encounter a candidate in person, they want to know who you are before anything else, right?
Right. And I think that's what where one of my strengths is because I have been in this community for a long time. And I always say, I am the person I am because of the community that I was raised in. And it was my Memphis community that definitely raised me and came to our aid and my family's aid when in our greatest, most darkest times, and wrapped their arms around us and said, "You're going to be okay. And we're going to make sure that you're going to be okay because you're our neighbor." And that people have been familiar with my story and have watched me grow. And for me, this is a service of finding a way to give back to the amount of opportunity and love that they have given me.
You've also come to politics at a time when a lot of people your age are coming to politics, and it's what I've called many times a sort of new activism that we've seen in the last 5 to 6 years in Memphis. Do you think your generation of political involvement is changing the city's politics?
Oh, well, for sure. I didn't come into politics thinking I wanted to be a politician or anything like that. I came into politics because I wanted to see Medicaid expansion happen in Tennessee, because as a cancer survivor, the Affordable Care Act changed my life. It allowed me to go to graduate school. Before the Affordable Care Act passed, pre-existing conditions were very much hard to overcome to get access to healthcare. And it didn't matter if you had money or if you didn't have money, their insurance companies were going to deny you, right? And that was very much of my coming of age story of, I survived cancer. How am I going to survive in this world without healthcare? So in advocating for Medicaid expansion, I just found so many people that were advocates and wanting to see this happen. And I think we see it on the polls where 60%, over 60% of Tennesseans support Medicaid expansion. But this is not unique only to healthcare. We're seeing it, for example, with the pipeline. It's being led by young activists. We're seeing it in police brutality movement. A lot of it is being led by young activists that then turn into the political sphere because they see that who writes these laws makes a difference and that they have something to contribute to shaping those laws and making our community a more just community to be in.
Mm-hmm. So is it hard for activism and what I'll call retail politics, the act of running for office, is that an uneasy coexistence between the two?
I think so. But in my experience, for me, it hasn't been. Obviously, I can only speak to my experience. But I think we're going to see more and more of this happen, of activists turning politicians. I think time will tell. But a lot of the activists that have engaged in the political sphere have done well, and we're moving the needle or starting conversations that wouldn't be happening if we weren't at the table.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A final point. Your first opponent when you took the plunge, State Senator Brian Kelsey, his seat is up on the 2022 ballot. Are you going to be a candidate for that?
I knew you were going to ask me this. I've been asked quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So I haven't ruled it in and I haven't ruled it out. I think, unfortunately, redistricting is happening, and we really don't know how these districts are going to be shaped. This is another reason why I'm a big supporter of HR 1 at the federal level, because I don't believe that the elected officials should elect their voters. Their voters should elect them. So we will see what the district looks like. That hasn't been released yet.
Right.
And then I'm very much someone that's driven by numbers and all of the hard details. So I'm waiting to see what the district would look like. But regardless of whether I run for office or not, I'm very much committed to the Memphis community and will continue to be advocate, just how I have done this legislative session as a private citizen.
Mm-hmm. All right. We've been talking with Gabby Salinas of the State Political Action Committee, Fuerza. Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris on WKNO's Behind the Headlines this week, talking taxes, recertified and otherwise, the ending of the pandemic, what the state is saying months after making some serious allegations about how the local health department handled vaccinations locally, and mental health training for EMSs that could be the next criminal justice reform locally. Lots of topics, all in 1/2 hour. You can hear the program on the Behind the Headlines podcast. Subscribe to the Daily Memphian at dailymemphian.com. You can subscribe to this podcast and our others at Google Podcast, iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. I'm Bill Dries. The Daily Memphian Politics Podcast is produced by Kix Patterson.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.